Hello, literarians. Welcome back to the Literary Lori YouTube channel. I'm Literary Lori, and if you love to read books or write books that center the lives of Black people and other people of color globally, then you are in the right place because I love those things too. But this episode is not about my love of books. It is about my love of Black Literary History Month. Yes, February in my world, which is a Black and bookish world, February is all about Black literary history because there are so many incredible Black writers born in February. So rather than just celebrating Black History Month, I celebrate Black Literary History Month. And every single day in February, I am sharing a story or information about an amazing Black writer born in February. Now, can you believe we are on day 18? Today is February 18th if you're watching in real time. And on this day, there are not one, not two, not three, but four incredible Black writers born on this day. And those amazing writers are Audre Lorde, Elizabeth Nunez, B.B. Moore Campbell, and the one and only Toni Morrison. Now, you know I'm not going to get on this YouTube and try to do one episode with those four incredible writers. I mean, does anyone want to sit here for 4 hours? No, I know I didn't. So we are going to you're going to be watching videos on each of those writers separately. Yesterday, I did a video on B.B. Moore Campbell. Today, we're going to talk Toni, though, because she gets this day, because technically, really, she is the GOAT. Whether you love her or you don't, she is the one who has the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, the Nobel Prize for literature, and mind you, she is the only Black American to have ever won the Nobel Prize for literature to this day. Okay, when she won it, she was the first Black woman to do so, but to this day, there are only four Black writers who have won the Nobel Prize for Literature. They're from Africa, from the Caribbean, and she still stands as the only Black American. So, okay, this episode is for Toni Morrison, but don't worry, we're going to get to Audre Lorde, Elizabeth Nunez, and we already did B.B. Moore Campbell. So, what am I going to talk about for Toni Morrison on her special birthday? Clearly, I'm not a Toni Morrison expert. I'm a fan, but I'm not an expert. So we're going to stick with our facts, our fun facts strategy. But I have tried my very best to find 10 facts that you might not know about Toni Morrison. So buckle up, Buttercup. Let's get to it. Here we go. Fun fact that you might not know about Toni Morrison, number one, is that her middle name was Ardelia. Yes, and that her first name was Chloe, not Toni. I'm sure many people know that Toni Morrison's real name was Chloe Woolford, but did you know that her middle name was Ardelia? Did you perhaps think that her middle name was Anthony? Well, you would not be 100% wrong if you thought her middle name was Anthony. Here's the tea. Chloe Woolford was given the middle name Ardelia by her parents because Ardelia was her grandmother's name. However, when young Chloe was 12, she became a Catholic. And when you become Catholic, you get to pick a name, like your baptismal name. And yes, Toni picked Anthony from Saint Anthony of Padua, who was a Portuguese saint. So she adds Anthony to her name, and little by little, when she goes to Howard University for college, people start calling her Toni because of her middle name Anthony, or her saint's name Anthony, which would be the more technically correct thing. So Toni comes from Anthony. Anthony comes from her baptismal name, which comes from Saint Anthony of Padua. Did you know that? Maybe not. Now you do. Let's move on. Fun fact number 2, I'm sure you knew that Toni Morrison was born in Lorain, Ohio, born and raised in Lorain, Ohio. But did you know that Lorain, Ohio only shows up in one of Toni Morrison's novels, only one, and that novel is, yes, her first one, The Bluest Eye. All right, let's see. How you doing so far? All right, let's keep going. Fun fact number 3, Toni Morrison was an early reader, shocking, thanks to her mother, but she was supposedly reading by age 3 or 4, and two of her favorite authors, not when she was 3 or 4, but as a young person in high school, were Jane Austen, and Leo Tolstoy. So she was reading good authors, right? Okay. Fun fact number 4. This girl was such a lover of literature and reading. One of her first jobs was as a library aide. Yes, she worked at the Lorraine Public Library as a teenager. I hope you're getting a nice vision of young Toni, like cerebral young little Toni, loving to read, working at the library. I love that for her. All right, fun fact number 5. Toni Morrison attended Howard University, where she got her undergraduate degree. And remember, that's where people start calling her Toni. I can see that. And then she went to Cornell University. I don't know how many people knew that her master's degree in English came from Cornell. So Howard and Cornell. Fun fact number 6. Toni Morrison did marry right after or somewhere towards the end of her career at Cornell, but that marriage did not last. But that is where she got the last name Morrison. And she had 2 sons, Slade and Harold. Harold was her older son. Slade was her younger son. And because she got divorced relatively early, she ended up raising her boys alone. And her younger son, Slade, she ended up collaborating with him on several children's books. And when I say several, I mean at least 8 or 9 children's books. Sadly, Slade died at age 45 of pancreatic cancer. Harold is a very private person. He does not have a public profile, but apparently he still is very involved in maintaining his mother's legacy. All right, fun fact number 7. Toni Morrison, most people know that she worked as an editor at Random House. I'm sure you knew that. There's so many new books, Toni at Random, that just came out that talk about her influence and impact as an editor. But did you know that when she started working at Random House, she was working in the textbook division? Yes, she worked as a textbook editor for the first 2 years before she got moved down to the fiction department. Yes. All right, let's keep going. All right, Toni Morrison published her first book, The Bluest Eye, when she was 39 years old, and that was in 1970. So hopefully that's inspirational to those of you who think you're too old to publish or it's never going to happen for you. Not only did her first book come out when she was 39, and The Bluest Eye was, was well received, but it certainly didn't, let her quit her job and like living on Easy Street. It was a nice debut. Book number 2, which was my favorite Toni Morrison novel, which was Sula, came out 3 years later. It was nominated for a National Book Award, but she didn't win. Keeps going. Couple years later, her third book was, The Song of Solomon. The Song of Solomon was book number 3, and that was her breakout book. The Song of Solomon won the National Book Critics Circle Award, okay? And that was the book that really launched Toni's career. So again, if you're taking notes, not book 1, not book 2, but every book gets better and better and better. So, and again, she's 40, she's 43. I think she must have been like 46, 47 when Song of Solomon came out. So don't put pressure on yourself or to be ready or to be done right away. All right. And just as an epilogue to Song of Solomon being her breakout book, in 1998, the Radcliffe Publishing Course named The Song of Solomon the 25th best English language novel of the 20th century. Have you read that book yet? Maybe you should put that on your to-be-read list. It's on mine. I actually just picked up a copy of it that I found at a used bookstore. Lucky me. All right. Fun fact number 9. Here we are. Toni Morrison appeared on the cover of Newsweek in 1981 after Tar Baby was published. Yay, she's on the cover of a magazine. Why is that a big deal? It's a big deal because she was the first Black woman to be featured on the cover of a national magazine since Zora Neale Hurston appeared on the cover of the Saturday Review in 1943. Okay, so you will see in the subsequent fun facts that Toni Morrison, again, whether you love her or you don't, whether you like her books, you don't like her books, she was the trailblazer. She's breaking barriers, becoming the first in so many arenas within the world of literature. So by fun fact number 10, in 1989, Toni Morrison becomes the Robert F. Going Professor in the Humanities at Princeton University. Great, good for her. She got an academic job. But no, it's not just that. She became the first. Are you keeping track of the firsts? African American woman to have an endowed chair at an Ivy League college. If you don't know how important it is to get that kind of appointment, go look it up. Go talk to some of your academic friends, but that's huge, especially at an Ivy League university. All right, fun fact number 11. Now, this is opinion. This is Lori's opinion, but I still think I might surprise you with what I think is Toni Morrison's most important book. It's not one of her novels. It's a book you might not have heard of, and it was created when she was still at Random House in 1977, and that book is called The Black Book. And it's really like it's considered an anthology, but it really looks like a scrapbook. And it is it's like a compilation of photographs, illustrations, essays, quotes, poetry. It really is an assembly of what made Black America Black America. And the reason I think of it as Toni Morrison's most important book, because it really is like how Toni Morrison saw Black America. It's not pretty. It's not representative of like, oh, we want to show off our best and our brightest. No, there are like Sambo pictures in there. There's controversial content in there, but it's like, I don't care what white people think. I want there to be something for Black people to have a compilation of our culture that we can look to. Like it's like its own archive of what Black America was in 1977. The New York Times called it, quote, an archival look at Black life in America. The Black Book stands out as a strange and singular creation, and one that vividly captures Toni's notion of writing and publishing from within the Black experience without the white gaze, unquote. So I was lucky enough to see a copy of the Black Book when I lived in the Library of Africa and the African Diaspora in Ghana, which has its own archival mission. And it really is incredible. It really does look like a scrapbook of Black America. And if nothing else, it is an archive that we should be so grateful that Toni put this book together. So if you haven't seen the Black Book, first of all, it's not so easy to find a copy, but I highly suggest you try to get one and look at it and understand what she gave us in compiling that collection. All right, fun fact number 12. I met Toni Morrison. This is my personal fun fact. I met Toni Morrison in Philadelphia when she was on book tour for her novel, God Help the Child. It was one of her last novels. Not her last one, but maybe it was her last one. I don't even know. But her book, God Help the Child, came out the same year that my book, Same Family, Different Colors. Both of those books really dealt with colorism in the nuclear family. So I was so excited. I waited in line to meet her. She was so kind to me. And when I told her that I wrote a book about colorism, she's like, well, where's my copy? And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I want to read it. And I was like, what? You want to read my book? And I didn't have a copy with me. I did send her one because she was still at Princeton at the time. I don't know if she received it. I never heard anything else, but it was a lesson that I learned that you should always carry copies of your book with you. And I did that when I had a chance to meet Chimamanda Adichie. I had a copy of Hair Story with me and I was like, here, have a copy. And so she was happy about that. So I never forgot that lesson, but I also never forgot the kindness that Toni Morrison, treated me like a real human being, was so kind to me, took the time to talk to me, and asked for a copy of my book. So I loved her for that. Anyway, that is the end of the fun facts. That was 12 fun facts. You probably didn't know that I met Toni Morrison. So if nothing else, I know there's one thing you learned today. But I hope you learned some other things about Toni Morrison. And this is what I want to leave you with. You don't have to love Toni Morrison's books. I know a lot of people feel guilt because they're like, I didn't really like Beloved, or I don't understand any of her books. Or they read them and like, I didn't like this at all. I did not enjoy that read. It was too difficult. It was too this, it was too that. And there's a whole lot of people talking on the internet now, discussing, was Toni Morrison difficult? Do I have to love her? Blah, blah, blah. You don't. You don't even have to like any of her works, but here's what you do need to do. You need to understand Toni Morrison's place in the world of literature, of American literature, of Black literature. You need to understand her influence and impact on the literary world, and you definitely need to give her the respect for her literary output. And again, all of the work she did, not just as a writer, but as an editor and as somebody who spoke out loud about the freedom Black writers and other writers of colors should have to write their truth without kowtowing or without having to create for a white audience. That's freedom that she gave to us writers of color. She has said it in so many different ways. And again, you don't got to like her. You don't got to like her work, but you should understand who she is in the canon and in the discussion, the conversation of literature, American literature, particularly for women of color, for Black women, okay? So do your homework. Again, you don't got to read her books, but do your homework and understand what she has done for the realm of writers who look like me, for writers who are not white, all right? There you have it. That's my Toni Morrison, Bet You Didn't Know. Hope this gives you some new perspectives, new ideas, maybe some curiosity seeds to go do your own research. I'm going to leave you with her own words. Somebody asked, a New York Times reporter asked Toni Morrison, what makes a good story? And she said, quote, a good story ends with the acquisition of knowledge. So hopefully you acquired some knowledge from this video. You know, I'll be back tomorrow with another video about another amazing Black writer born in February. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your comments. Any thoughts? Leave them down below. All right, see you tomorrow.